We are going to call to order with an approval of the open session agenda. We need a motion to approve our agenda for November 21st, 2024.
I would like to amend the agenda to pull the AP bill list, the P-card bill list, the AP addendum.
Slow down just so Journey can write it down.
And then the AP addendum list. And the P-card addendum bill list. And then to pull Jen Olson, Renee Hinke, Katie Lysak, and all middle and high school library book orders for a separate vote.
How many individual items is that, just so she can double check?
So the individual item, do you have the?
I wrote down the page numbers.
So it'll be Jen Olson will be one item. Then Renee Hinke will be one item. Katie Lysak will be one item. And then you have the books.
So for the AP bill list, and I didn't find any on the addendums, this is just the regular bill list. It's the Follett Content Solutions.
Just speak up, ladies. Sorry, they can't hear us back there.
Follett Content Solutions. And I have the page numbers. I can give them to you. Want me to say them right now?
She's amending.
Do you want me to tell you the page numbers now, or you want me to give this to you? Okay, so it's Follett Content Solutions, Mackin Educational Resources, and that's on the AP bill list for middle and high school purchases. And on the P card, Amazon. That's what I do.
All right, well, while Joni works on that, then we need a motion to approve the amended agenda.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? No, motion carries 7-0. All right, we are going to then, well, are you okay, Joni? That's a lot to do kind of at once. So let me make sure you're okay. Yeah. Okay. Let me know if you need more time. Okay. We're going to go ahead and move on to Pledge of Allegiance. We have Ariana Helm. She's a Liberty High School student. She is going to lead us in the pledge tonight.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. All right, we are going to move on to item 8, recognitions. Brian, take it away.
Okay, up first, Danny Zamet from North Point Middle has been chosen as the Missouri PE Most Shaped Middle School Teacher of the Year. And Jessica Anderson from Wabash Elementary has been selected as the St. Louis District Elementary PE Most Shaped Teacher of the Year. Congratulations. Okay, up next, the school counseling section of DESE announced Lakeview Elementary School as a recipient of the Gisbers Comprehensive School Counseling Award. Congratulations to Counselors Stephanie Davenport and Alyssa Herbst for this accomplishment. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Carolyn Roof, the DESE Comprehensive School Counseling Award Coordinator, to say a few words.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here tonight to represent the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, School Counseling and Wellness section. The Gisbers Missouri Comprehensive School Counseling Award recognizes Missouri school buildings, comprehensive school counseling programs that have demonstrated the commitment to fully implementing their program. This award is supported by state legislation, and there are only 19 schools in the state of Missouri who have received this award. This prestigious award is named after Dr. Norman Gisbers, retired professor from the University of Missouri. Dr. Gisbers is the founder of the Missouri Comprehensive School Counseling Program. This award is for individual schools whose school counseling program has reached a level of implementation that emphasizes the positive impact school counseling programs have on student success and school and community, and minimizes activities that act as barriers to this work. It has been my privilege to work with the Lakeview Elementary School counselors, Stephanie and Alyssa, for the past 2 years to complete this application process and to assist them in receiving this well-deserved recognition. By receiving this award, the Lakeview Elementary School serves as a model program and a resource for school counseling programs around our state. Also, Stephanie and Alyssa will be identified and called upon as professional resources for DESE and other school counselors throughout our state of Missouri. So congratulations to both of them, and I'd like to give them this award.
Okay, up next, WSD's Lauren Coldiron from Heritage Elementary and Sandy Pizzo from Liberty High School received the 2024 Emerson Excellence in Teaching Awards, joining an elite group of teachers from across the St. Louis region with this honor. Congratulations.
All right, we are going to move on to public comments now. Let me open it real quick. The Board of Education wants to hear from district residents and employees regarding district-related matters. So it has provided a set amount of time, 3 minutes, for residents and employees of the district to address the board during the public comment period. Individual residents and employees wanting to address the board during this period may do so in accordance with the following guidelines, which are usually posted up there. All right, so we have one speaker tonight. Deborah Palmer.
Good evening. My name is Deborah Palmer. I'm not into politics, and I've never gone to a school board meeting before. But after your behavior, I felt a very strong need to come and remind you of your duties. As a board member, you are held at a higher standard in the boardroom and out. From the Missouri Board of Association, you're to work as a team to make decisions for students. You are to care about children and want to serve your community. School board members are elected by the voters in their district and serve as a link between the community and the school. You are responsible for governing the school district and representing the interests of the entire district. You are not elected representatives of a political party, and there is to be no politics. You need to remember this. Your loyalty is to the students. From the Wentzville School District Policy 0340. You acknowledge that the board represents the entire school community and will refuse to surrender your independent judgment to special interests or partisan political groups. You will never use your position on the board for the gain of yourself or your friends. This is something that you've totally thrown out the window. Your behavior was in a form of bullying, and that is reprehensible and should not be tolerated. The lengths that you went to are deplorable. These businesses have parents who own or work at the businesses so they can put food on the tables for children in this district, and you put forth a plan to harm them. Shame on you. You should resign. You should be 100% ashamed of your behavior, as we are. Ashamed and angry about your behavior. You are a disgrace to this entire district. We, the voters, have lost all confidence in you. Don't look to be reelected. Grow up, get over it, and move on. Quit being a crying flower child. By the way, this is a red county, and if you don't like that, then I suggest you move to a blue county.
Thank you. Take one and pass it down. Pass that down. Thank you. All right, moving on to item number 10, district comments.
First of all, thank you, Ms. Palmer, for sharing your thoughts with us. Safe Defend, we did conduct our first drills, our first safety drills with the Safe Defend system, and they went very well. We did identify a few issues and working with the Safe Defend system right now to address those concerns as they come forward. Reach ECC, just a quick update on that. If you've been by North Point, you've seen there's a lot of progress being made. The project is still tracking ahead of schedule. Reach is supposed to be completed and ready for occupancy by January of 2026. ECC should be in May to June of 2026. All of that still is clearly dependent on weather, but again, we're tracking well ahead of schedule right now. Operation Warm occurred this past weekend, or 2 weekends ago, I believe it was now. We partnered with firefighters from the Wentzville Fire Protection District and the WSD for the 12th consecutive year to supply nearly 300 brand new coats to elementary students. To date, that organization and that partnership has provided 5,800 coats to WSD students. A big thank you to Kathy Delacqua for all of her work with that as well. Veterans Day activities across the WSD. Students of all ages took a moment to celebrate Veterans Day. Thank you to all of those who have served and are currently serving our country. And then last spring, we announced that all of our WSD elementary schools were named as PLTW Project Lead the Way 2023-24 Distinguished Launch Schools for their commitment. Hold on. To increasing student access, engagement, and achievement in their PLTW programs. Last week, the banners were delivered to each one of the buildings to celebrate that amazing accomplishment. So when you get a chance and you see your child's elementary school, you should see that banner being proudly displayed. Board candidate night will be this Monday. The information meeting is Monday, November 25th, beginning at 6 o'clock. This is an opportunity for anyone interested in running for one of the available Wentzville board seats in April to come and hear what the Wentzville Board of Education should be doing. And lastly, I wanted to just thank everybody for a terrific start of the year and wish everybody and their families a happy Thanksgiving. Sorry, Brent, I'm supposed to announce the wow factor. It's not an announcement. So Wow Factor Award is something we've been doing in Wentzville. It's a chance to recognize somebody in the Wentzville School District that's gone above and beyond. So if you get a chance to scan that QR code, you can do that and recognize a teacher, staff member, anybody you'd like for their above and beyond. So take a moment and do that. It really does mean a lot when you get one. I received one that was very nice, made my day.
I submitted a wow factor for my son's teacher, and I was touched to hear back from him. I thought it was really, really sweet. So I encourage everyone to do that. If there's a special teacher in your kiddo's life or somebody that you recognize as exceptional, take that minute and fill out the form. All right, so moving on to consent agenda. Everyone refresh. That might take a second, but refresh.
The internet is having issues, so I don't know if it's going to be showing correctly yet.
Okay, we will be patient. We'll give it, okay. Is that yes or no? Okay. Everybody give me a nod if yours looks okay. All right. All right, so
I think it looks okay, except the two addendum,
Are they still missing?
the P card and the P card addendum are missing.
okay.
Mine won't even, so at least yours has this.
Maybe refresh again, see if it pops up. I was gonna say I could give her mine too. We are taking just a moment to make sure the agenda is corrected to the items that were pulled. We're going to go ahead and move on to approving the consent agenda as we're waiting on it to refresh. So we need a motion to approve the consent agenda, the amended consent agenda as presented.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. All right, item number 12, old business. We have policy 6123, Holocaust education. This is a second read. We need a motion to approve the policy.
Motion.
Second. I'm trying to get in.
Do we have any discussion? No discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. Motion passes. All right, maybe refresh again. What numbers were you putting the P card at? Were they like at the? Okay, so I have 13.1 is the bill list. Is that going to change? Because we're going to move down them each individually. That's going to change. Can we go out of order while we're waiting for? It's okay for new business to go out of order. Okay. All right, we are going to go a little out of order on how new business looks right now, while we wait for what was pulled from consent to show on the agenda. Why don't we start from the bottom and work our way up? So let's start with 13.6. So we're just going backwards. Yeah, everybody okay with that? All right, so we're going to start with 13.6, legal advice discussion. This was put on the agenda by Secretary Hinkie.
Yeah, it's just really a formality. It's just to give direction to administration that when legal advice is given to one board member, it is just shared and disseminated with the rest of the board, just so we're all on the same page. So I guess if everybody agrees, that'll be the direction.
No.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I think really, in general, it has been. Are there? I don't want to get into incidences. Okay. Yes.
Just
Yeah.
I mean, we all know the incident, but just that it's just shared and we've discussed it.
All right. So moving on to 13.4. Policy 3440, travel reimbursement. This is a first read. Actually, go back, refresh. Hang on.
President Lysak? A discussion.
Well, yeah, I mean, yes, that would
Okay.
be appropriate. There's no motion attached, so yeah.
So on the travel policy, I know we had talked a couple months ago about looking into changing some things on it. The policy part of it is the what's on the agenda tonight, and then there's a accompanying regulation that's going to be reviewed by administration for further red lines, but just a 30,000-foot view. Some of the stuff that I suggested for change was going off of the IRS/GSA per diem rates, which can change based on what city you're traveling to, that sort of thing. Also, it's, in my view, if we're asking our employees to travel and eat away from their houses, it's going to cost them money, and it's not, I think $40 5-6 years ago was probably enough, but things have doubled and tripled in price now. So I think that there should be a adjustment and keeping it in line with the IRS rates and the GSA on their website, where you can punch in where they went and that sort of thing. Makes it a lot easier and more consistent across the board.
Just out of curiosity, did you put in some of the cities just to kind of see where we are with the $40 a day versus?
It's like 80.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like double. I mean, most of our hotel stuff is covered, like the district will book it. So it's not like the employees aren't booking it most of the time. But with food, and it adjusts, you can plug in, they had a district paid meal on one of their travel days. So they get a reduced meal rate for that day because we're already paying for a meal at a conference or something like that. So they can always submit receipts up to the amount that's allowed for the day based on whether or not we paid for food that day, whether or not it was the first or last day of travel, that sort of thing.
President Lysak, if I may. I definitely support, making sure that we're up to date with the latest in terms of like per diems and stipends and things like that. But I have a big concern with one of the additional sentences added to the policy that states the board reserves the right to review and evaluate all travel expenditures and impose restrictions on future travel if deemed necessary. I think that's very ambiguous. That, you know, imposition on restrictions could be up for interpretation. And I think that it's very unclear. It can lead to inconsistent application in the future, potential bias against, you know, what is being attended or cost, things like that. I also think this is a bit of an overreach on the board's part. We already, you know, have the approval for the superintendent to review and approve the travel. I think that this also is a bit redundant considering we approved the budget that has the, you know, travel implemented into it, and they are already accountable that way. Also, it's a bit potentially threatening to employees, or potentially uncomfortable for employees to feel that this threat of an imposing restriction it's a big question mark. What's it going to be? Is it because of the content? Is it because of the city and the state? Is it because it's a certain a certain amount of cost? There's just really no, in my opinion, reason that we need to have that particular sentence in this policy. And I would motion to remove that.
I just wanted to add a little bit. I see where you're coming from with that. I think that sentence is just redundant because that is what the policy procedure is. If we want to change that's exactly what it is changing the policy, right? Like reserving the right to review and evaluate the policy itself versus maybe like individual travel. And maybe that wasn't the nature of the sentence, to impose restrictions on future travel if deemed necessary. I think that's the process of going through changing the policy. That's just what I think. But the sentence about the board retains authority for approving its members' travel, that would be us. I think babysitting each other, like in that instance, probably isn't necessary. You know, our job is to hold each other accountable. And then related expenses I feel like we're kind of putting ourselves into a supervisory position instead of the governance position where we're supposed to be. Maybe I'm just interpreting that incorrectly, but I just want to make sure that we remain at the governance position. And I pulled travel policies from a number of different districts, and really it just they all kind of start out like the board, but then it goes in and really lists the superintendent as the supervisor for approving really all of it. The board approves the superintendents, and we have those lines, and that's consistent through a lot of the policies. I even looked at out of state MSBAs. So that I think is totally, applicable. But when we start to kind of get into, I guess what I would say would be maybe a little bit of overreach, I personally don't like that part.
Okay, so I'm a little confused. What part is the board doing in this policy that is overreach?
Okay, so we added, it is the policy of the Board of Education. This is currently there, to pay reasonable travel expenses for those who travel on, we're striking school, district business, and whose trip has been approved in advance by, so we're adding the Board of Education. Where this would be appropriate is with the superintendent, and that's consistent from district to district.
So that's why I added it, because it didn't say that in the very first part of it. But since we're putting that part in the policy that says the board approves the superintendent travel, I added the Board of Education because in the scenario of the superintendent, the Board of Education would be the one approving that travel.
Right, but the way I think it reads could be interpreted as it has to be approved in advance by the board, the superintendent, and it says, or the superintendent's designee. So I think we leave some ambiguity there as to, well, does every district travel need to be approved by the board, or when we go into the words, see, I don't think every district travel needs to be approved by the board. We approve a budget, that's our job. Then we leave it up to our superintendent who supervises whether he approves it directly or if a principal approves teacher travel. That's where I think removing that part where we added the Board of Education.
So it's laid out. So basically that first paragraph just says, these are the 3 individuals that may approve travel. Here are the 3 circumstances or 2 circumstances in which that would happen. The board would approve the superintendent's, and then the superintendent approves everybody else's or their designee. So it's like the opening statement for what they're about to lay out.
I understand that, yes. I just think it's still,
Because if we don't say in this first paragraph that the board is one of the people who will be approving travel, we're going to then come down here and say also the board gets to approve the superintendent's travel. So we're not.
right. I guess I just disagree with that because other Francis Howell, Fort Zumwalt, it doesn't have the board in that. I just feel like that could be just misinterpreted in ways that maybe we don't mean it to be, but it leaves room for then the board in the instances that Julie noted where, the possibility of bias, us going back, item by item through travel and saying, well, we didn't approve that, or we didn't. I'm just scenarioing, what the possibility of.
So I understand that, and I understand the argument. However, I also think that all companies have travel policies, and they're far stricter than this one we're looking at right here. And none of it should be taken as something against anyone. It's to protect the interest of the district and our policies and the way our procedure, setting it out in stone. And to say that the board reserves the right to evaluate all travel expenditures, you're right. We're just reiterating the fact that we already have the right to do that. But it's putting it in the policy so that people understand that it wouldn't be, an unallowable thing for us to do that. It's clearing up some of the gray area maybe. And as far as, I guess, travel would go, looking through an AP bill list or a P card, it's typically, I guess it would be if there was like travel 4 months from now and there's a bunch of airfare on it. Sure, I guess the board could pull that and say, we're not going to pay for it, but still, we have the right to do that. But it's not anything different. We could do that now, or we could do that if we change this policy to take that language out. Not that that was the intent of the language to begin with, but it doesn't take away the fact that we can still do that. And it's in policy. And again, this is a very vague policy compared to most companies.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, a couple of comments. Going back to the beginning with $80 as an example. Having spent a lot of time on the per diem website, that varies according to city, street, county, all the above. So it's not that I don't want people to walk away from that statement saying that, great, it was 40, now it's 80. It's no. When you get on the website, it tells you what is available, allowable for that location, if that's what the board wants to use. So that it's a very much variable, and that goes down to incidentals as well as hotels. Now, the thing we'll run into on hotels is if we have conferences that require you or incentivize you to stay in some, it's oftentimes those conference hotels will exceed the approved per diem rates. So we have to have flexibility for that, I think, because it benefits the school district when they can get into the hotel of record. In terms of, the last sentence that has been discussed, I read that as if we were to have somebody sitting in the superintendent's chair besides the superintendent we have today, and he decides that he's taking his crew to the conference that's going to be in Hawaii, that's where this line comes into play. It's not intended in my mind to deal with the day-to-day, because I got to tell you, I am not in the business as a board member to look at travel expenses and to look at not travel expenses, but to look at the where you're going to go and that sort of thing. I depend upon the administration to be good stewards of the money, and have shown to be that way. So I see where, in my mind, where that could apply. It's kind of like a fail-safe statement. I don't know if we can word it differently so that it gives us the flexibility. Okay. I would say that there's something there because we need to have it just in case, but it's not something that's going to be used, I don't anticipate.
Sorry, David.
Go ahead.
So yeah, I wanted to share what I had to make it more specific to what I think the intent is behind it, and to David's point. So what I had written up was that the board retains the right to review travel expenditure to ensure alignment with district policy and budget. Should significant discrepancies or concerns arise, the board may collaborate with the superintendent to implement appropriate measures to address future travel practice. That takes away the impose restrictions on future travel if deemed necessary.
Okay, so I appreciate that amendment. I do think that also restricts the board, and I don't think that is appropriate. With the part where it says that the board will collaborate with the superintendent to ensure it doesn't happen going forward, it doesn't allow for the board to do something about something that has happened already, like a purchase of 8 round-trip tickets to Hawaii that are for 4 months from now. We could cancel those. We could vote to not allow that travel, but this policy would then read that we would have to just go ahead and let them take that trip to Hawaii and not be able to do anything about it until the next time they try it.
I feel like in that instance, this seems more the rewrite of the policy that I had just voiced. I think I disagree that it limits the board. I think we still have every opportunity to continue to govern, and then you change policy or things like that. I think we're at a higher risk for a lot of things if we leave this last sentence as it is, for purposes of just protecting board action, if that makes sense.
Can you read the last part of your amendment again?
Should significant discrepancies or concerns arise, the board may collaborate with the superintendent to implement appropriate measures to address future travel practices.
Okay, and I guess the reason that the last part gives me heartburn is because we have had experiences where our own board policies or lack of clarification in the policy made it seem as though the board was not allowed to do something. So to further restrict the board, or even give the appearance that there might be a restriction on what the board can do in that scenario, I don't think is wise. So I don't know if there's something that we can change about that very last portion.
I guess, can we just remove the last sentence and not put anything there?
I mean, I'm in favor of just not having it, because I think it does create confusion. Like, the board can always change a policy whenever we want to change a policy. So this just, to me, it adds confusion having it in there. That's just my opinion, and it's redundant.
Pat, if we take out that last sentence, the board reserves the right to review and evaluate all travel expenditures and impose restrictions on future travel if deems not, okay, so what about this? Can we just stop at all travel expenditures and leave off and impose restrictions for future travel if deemed necessary?
But we're already doing that.
I know.
So I think it's redundant.
Do we remember what the purpose was of adding that, Pat?
While drafting, we use model policies from our policy provider, as well as those from other providers that we contract with. And this was language based on the model policy of an accompanying policy provider. So the whole out-of-state, in-state superintendent travel and the statement with regard to the board's sort of inherent authority to review travel and make changes were both provisions that were provided for in that other model policy. And as we were revising the language, to me, it made sense to include because it's unstated, yet it is within the board's authority. That said, I didn't consider it at the time to be necessarily confusing or an attempt to change anything we're already doing. It's basically just to state, to a certain extent, things that the board is already authorized to do.
So I guess at this point, I would like to motion that that sentence be removed from the policy.
Well, so with a first read, we would make suggestions for changes, I guess, with board direction. Do we feel like it might be necessary to table this first read? Because I feel like there's maybe some nitpicking or disagreement over certain things, maybe even via email, submit recommendations for wording, or I'm curious to see some of the sample policies that were used to draft this. And then maybe come back again with another first read because I mean, there were not just the first sentence. I think the board retains authority for approving its members' travel and related expenses for district business. Is that prior to travel, post travel? I mean, because we do approve it after travel.
Pre-travel.
I mean, why do we want to, I guess I feel that it's kind of like babysitting.
Well, prior to this, the superintendent was approving the board's travel, and that was kind of like back flip-flopped.
I don't think it's necessarily approving it, because if we were, let's say I were to go to but if I was to go to like a president's workshop and like they do them quarterly or whatever, having to, I guess, tell you guys that I'm going and wait for approval, you know, that's like, because that's how that reads. That's, you know, babysitting. When the only approval for travel would be like mileage reimbursement. Because, you know, if you want to go to a board secretary thing, you don't need our permission to go to a board secretary thing. You don't need our approval.
So if the board, if let's take the conference that they talked about at MSBA down in Georgia. If we wanted to go to that board and admin retreat, okay, and let's just say it was just the board that was going to go, who approves that?
Could we just make it just similar to the superintendent out of state? Because then, I mean, then the question, I mean, I'm not trying to be nitpicky about it, but like at what constitutes travel? Is it outside of this county? Is Columbia travel?
Apparently it is. We have something on the addendum for Columbia.
You know, but what I'm saying is like, is going to St. Charles travel? Like that's
technically anytime.
But what I'm saying,
technically when we go to graduation at Family Arena, we could reimburse mileage for that because we're going outside of to an event in our capacity. Travel. Yes. So do we need to approve each other going to graduation? I feel like just that I think out of state would be reasonable.
So, okay. So here's my question. And I think we are way overthinking
No,
this,
I agree, but it's in there. So then we're going to have to.
But who approves board travel? If we don't have anybody to approve board travel, then it's a free for all. Somebody could claim that it's a free for all. I could go on a trip and be like, I didn't need your approval to go to Wyoming for this trip. The policy doesn't say I do, but I went to a school board thing.
So I think maybe out-of-state travel would be very applicable here.
Or I went to Kansas City for a school board thing, didn't tell anybody about it, and now I got an expense report for $300 in mileage.
I guess, can you prove it was a school board thing?
Sure.
You know,
but nobody said that I could go. It wasn't.
I don't think you necessarily need our permission if it's an actual school board thing. If you're going as an MSBA delegate to, you're going in your capacity. It's a legitimate thing, right? Like we're assuming we're not going to be dishonest and lie.
And I get it. And I do believe that people are good more than they are bad. However, I don't think it's wise to leave that door open.
But then we also
with no approval for the board travel.
So if we're going to scenario this, if you're going to Kansas City, who's paying for your hotel? The district or you? If it's
slept
you,
in
then
my
you're going to
car. I went
reimburse
back
it,
same
and
day.
then we cannot approve the reimbursement if we believe you lied to us. Well, if you want to drive to Kansas City and back in one day for a school board
It was a
meeting,
hypothetical.
again, yes, if we're going to scenario it. And I'm not trying to be snarky. I'm
Right.
just saying, like, I still think we don't need to babysit each other. If it's legitimate travel,
Then I would say that we revert back to the old language and have the superintendent approve board travel. Because I don't think that there should be any entity within this district that doesn't have to have approval for their travel.
You don't have an employee approves your manager's travel.
That's the way it was written before.
But
That's why I changed it to the
I
board.
understand, but going back to where it was makes no sense also.
I just don't think there shouldn't be any approval.
Can you just have a board majority vote on travel for the board?
What do you mean, like right now?
Yeah.
Well, she's saying like, what if tomorrow she decides she's going to go to a thing, but it's before the next board meeting, she wouldn't be able to get board approval. And I get that. It makes sense.
well, and even just if it's just little, like graduation, like, I don't know.
Overnight travel.
Okay. I mean,
Let's,
yeah.
if we
Okay.
change it to
I think-
overnight travel.
I think that is
the board
sure.
retains authority to approve all of its members' overnight travel related expenses.
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, because that would be more cost incurred with overnight travel.
We could add the word overnight to that sentence and change the because yeah, if we're doing overnight stuff, it's booked in advance.
What if we just put a dollar amount on it?
Because that dollar amount's going to change depending on what the economy is doing.
Well, that's fine. Then we change it. It's like we're changing the per diem thing, which I think we can agree with. But like if
We're going to change it to something that's a moving target, so it'll adjust automatically with.
I don't know. I think I don't see it becoming an issue personally. So if you set something at like $100, how often is the board traveling for over $100?
We got to think long term, not us, just in general policy.
I'm just curious how many times somebody from the board has ever spent more than $100 on a trip, like a school board.
Every time you stay overnight.
Yep.
But that's fine. But we know about those well in advance is my point. So we would vote on that then if it's over $100.
Yeah, I'm ready to me take this offline and talk further. We're burning a lot of time here, but I feel like we're trying to create a fail-safe rule that no matter which way you look at it, there's going to be a yeah, but or a yeah, but. I think that we need to modify this collectively offline, come back for another read, and then decide if we feel comfortable enough to try it and see if it works. And if it's not an issue, then it's working. And if it's an issue, then we address it then. Sometimes I feel like we try to do the worst case so that we cover it in every instance. And it doesn't always need to be that way.
So do we want to send amendments to Pat, or is there going to, and then we bring it back eventually for another first read? Maybe have another discussion about this at the next meeting,
I
like
think
where
we
we're
should
at.
table it. I think so. Yeah, and come back.
Not necessarily the policy, like not have another first read, but just kind of brainstorm what our thoughts are at the next meeting.
Yeah, and I think seeing the model policies that you guys used might be helpful, just to email them, staying on board or something, just so we have an idea of, if our policy provider has this language in there, then that would be helpful for us to know that it wasn't just us coming up with it.
So it wasn't MCE, it was MSBA's model policy for travel expense reimbursements.
Yeah, just seeing, I think seeing the model.
I
Yeah.
can distribute that.
Okay, so we're gonna table 13.4. All right. Oh, I need to refresh. Okay, hang on. Okay. All right. 13.6, Board of Directors Election Resolution. We need a motion to approve the Board of Directors Election Resolution as presented.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. 13.5, Policy 4505, Instructional Staff Salary Schedules, first read. Does anybody have any questions, comments, changes?
So this is basically that other policy that we went over last month that we just consolidated into that one sentence and added it to the applicable employment policy.
Okay, hearing no changes. First read has no motion attached. It will come back as a second read, as is. 13.4, all right, so P-card addendum bill list. Okay, which one?
So this one I pulled by mistake. I did think that there was middle and high school books on there, but there is not. So
All right,
I
well,
have
we
no
still need to
objections.
approve it then
Right.
since it wasn't in consent. So motion to approve 13.4, fiscal year 20.
Sorry.
Oh, no, okay, that's fine. We have a motion by David
Second.
Biesenthal, second by Renee. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
None opposed, motion carries. All right, 13.3, P-card bill list. We need a motion to approve.
all right, this one I wanted
Hang on, we need a motion
to-
before discussion.
Motion.
Make a motion.
But we
She
need to
can make
pull
a
stuff
motion.
out.
Oh.
We need to pull out specific line items to vote on them separately. Because
Okay,
it's not the whole thing.
okay.
So this one.
Then, okay, well, hang on, then let's just think about it. If we're pulling out specific line items, then we'll have to do, how many specific line items are we pulling out? I just want to make sure we have enough motions. Because do they each need to be their own, a Jen motion, a Renee motion, a Katie? Well, yeah, if we're
Nope, we're
abstaining.
not. Okay, so this is the P card. So we're not on the P card. This
Okay,
is the books.
okay.
This one is just
And this one,
Amazon. It's just Amazon on the P card.
Okay, so just Amazon. The
And-
book orders on the Amazon for the P card.
okay. Is this the one you wanted to table to give them more time?
Correct. So the idea was just there were some of the books for middle and high school that seemed a little sexual in nature. We had asked administration to look through them. So to give them more time to look through those to ensure that they are age appropriate, we are following all the guidelines. I just want to table it until next month.
Okay, so the motion is to table 13.3.
Only the
Well,
books.
it's not a motion, I guess,
Only the
only the
Only the
books.
books.
book items from the Amazon.
Can we do that? Because technically.
We would have to
It's
pull the
already
books
been
separately for a
paid.
separate vote.
Yes. Okay, yeah, because technically,
So my question, which maybe, like, we have a policy, shouldn't we assume that they're following the policy?
Not when you find something that is questionable. That's when you bring stuff like this up.
But we're just paying.
It's already
We're just
been
motioning
paid.
to pay the
we're
bill,
approving
approve
that
the
it was
bill, not, right.
Yeah,
That would
so
be a
what
separate
I'm-
thing.
What I'm proposing is that we don't approve it. They would need to pull those books off the shelf, allow admin to further review them, and then we'll decide next month if we are going to put them back on the shelf or if they will need to be returned.
isn't that the trouble that we run into from the lowest I don't think it's that simple.
It's on our credit card statement. We need to pay that bill. If we have to return it after the fact, we can return it, but it's part of our bill that needs to be paid to keep our credit.
So to understand the P card, I understood the P card to be an emergency type of usage. So something we need it right now. I guess I'm confused why we're buying books with the P card when we come into this type of situation where we have books that we would like to further look into. Maybe we don't agree to them. Now they've already been purchased and paid for. Now what do we do?
Well, I would say they could be returned if we don't want to put them on the shelves.
Yeah, we have to pay our bills. There's not a choice in that. I think you pay the invoices, and then you direct the administration to pull the specific books. And I think you've already had discussions that they don't go public until they've been reviewed. That way, we're maintaining financial trueness, whatever the word would be, but we're doing it financially right, but we're still adhering to what your goal is.
Okay, so then we would go ahead and pay it, pull those books, review them, and then decide if they need to be returned or if they're good to go on the shelves.
Okay, what I'm thinking is that those books actually need to go through the formal review process, like all the other times. We want to make sure that we are in compliance, like with the Bluest Eye, when it was pulled and then it was put back. It has to go through.
But that was separate. We already had that book on the shelf. So these are
Well,
new
technically,
purchases.
these books are in our possession. They may be on shelves already. So following the proper procedure for this, I think, is super important. Pat?
I'm going to condition this statement on me not having reviewed the challenge materials policy recently, but the books are purchased. The books are intended to go in the library shelves. At this point, the challenge materials policy probably has to be complied with. That's the intent of the policy. Once we have the books in our possession, and we have a concern about the content of that book, that policy becomes effective and it's implemented. In the case that President Lysak just referenced, that actually went to federal litigation in the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Missouri. And the district court found that that policy is in full compliance with the law. And so I would encourage the use of that policy anytime we have a challenge book, because we have legal precedent indicating that that's a good policy and that we're in compliance with the law when we follow that policy.
So I have a question. Pat, does the board retain the right to set the age appropriateness standards for our book purchases?
Yeah, that's within the authority of the board through, I would venture to guess, a board policy, the adoption of a board policy to that effect.
Okay. And the board does not have the right to just decide that we don't want a certain book, because that would be a liability.
I think the issue is that the basis on which the board's making the decision and not following an established policy of the board. Again, I haven't read the policy in anticipation of tonight, so I can't tell you precisely the circumstances under which it's required to be used. But going based on what I know about it and what I recall from my review of it, it would be my recommendation before we take any action to at least consider reviewing it first.
So it sounds like we need to approve the P card bill at 13.3, and then further action would need to be taken outside of this board meeting. Whether you want to, I'm assuming, can a board member formally challenge a book? It doesn't have to be a parent or stakeholder. So if you wanted to go through that procedure for the individual, I don't know how many books there are. I didn't.
There's a lot.
There's a lot of books.
We're talking 50 to 100 just at first glance that we
Okay.
have on the shelves right now.
Definitely. Okay. So is for the sake of.
So I think it would be better probably to have a policy. I think we should talk about building a policy for age appropriateness of the books that we have on our shelves. Because I don't think 100 challenges is going to be the districts in the best interest of the districts and the employees' time.
That's a lot of books, definitely. All right.
May
Well,
I? Really
yeah, go
quick.
ahead.
this, you know what, never mind.
Okay, well, let's approve this. Talking about a policy, I guess if in board comments, if you wanted to bring that up, because obviously we don't have a line item in here on the agenda. So if you want to bring that up in board comments, we can. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
do you want to withdraw the motion
Yeah,
to
so
table?
I'll withdraw my motion.
Thank you, Joni. Okay. Would someone like to?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Second? Second. Okay. I was calling for one, but I'll do it. Okay. So all in favor of approving 13.3 P card bill list?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay. Motion carries. So in board comments, I think would be a good place to state your comments about that. Okay. 13.2.
Okay, this is the one, so we would need to pull Jen Olson and Renee Hinkie each for a separate vote on those.
Is that where mine is? That's where mine is too.
And
then?
yours is too, yes. And then yours is also on the 13.1.
Okay. So just so we need, that's 4 motions. Okay. Just making sure. All right. So let's go ahead and start with Jen's. Since you're there, we'll just work away. Motion to approve. I don't even know how to word this. Jen's travel.
Motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye.
6 ayes, 1 abstain, no nays. Okay. Motion to approve travel for Renee Hinkie.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
1 abstain. Okay. Motion to approve travel for Katie Lysak.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain. All right. Motion to approve the rest of 13.2 addendum bill list for November 2024. Right?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Got that, Jenny? Okay.
Okay, so yours is also on the AP bill list, the regular one. Yours is on both
Okay.
of them.
All right. I think so. I think, okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, the addendum voided the check that's on the regular bill
Oh,
list.
the first one. Okay, yes. All right. So 13.1.
Okay, but this one, so these items have not been purchased.
Tim, can you clarify that? Generally, if it's accounts payable, it's already
Which
been-
item are we talking about?
The AP bill list.
Okay, yeah, those are checks that are issued to be mailed after the meeting.
So these we could hold the check.
We've already received the goods or the services, though, have we not?
Oh, we have already purchased, we've already received.
This is to pay for.
Yes, this is to pay for, the check is to pay for goods or services that have already been received. Yes, that's how it would work.
What is it on here that you would like to?
Well, there was books on this one also.
Okay, so the books are, if there are books on here, they're currently in our possession. So the same conversation that we just had about books previously.
Yeah, we will only pay for items after they've been received, and then we'd issue the
Makes
check.
sense. All right. So we need to approve it. And then I guess those would be a part of the same conversation. Possible policy. Okay. Yeah, everybody good with that?
Yep. Motion to approve.
Okay.
13.1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, hang on a second. I have to go back now. All right. So that is all of new business. Moving on to other items, 14.1. Right. Okay, let's make sure we got it all. Yes. Okay. Board action items.
Oh, I have one.
Okay.
I think that we need a library policy that explicitly lays out what our age appropriateness expectation is, especially pertaining to sexually explicit content.
I would like to be a part of that policy making,
Me too.
whatever.
So basically a review then of 6310.
I think
school
probably
libraries.
a rewrite. Maybe start from scratch.
I do have some sample policies that
Okay.
I could bring.
Sample policies would be excellent.
We also have a policy that if you guys recall from 2023 that was redlined, that if you want to review that, that was back, the board tabled that in, I want to say September of 23.
Is that the one you just referenced, 6310?
6310, yeah. This was discussed at the September board meeting and tabled, and it never was brought back up again after that.
I think when me and Renee were talking about that policy, I think the reason we kind of ignored it was because we didn't like it.
Okay.
We wanted to maybe start from scratch one day, but it was put on the back burner.
Okay.
But now this presents itself.
Would anyone else like to be a part of that? It could be up to 3.
If you want to do it.
Okay. Jen, Renee, Julie. All right. Any other board action items? Go ahead. Go ahead, Renee.
I just wanted to go through our board priority items and just go through them and mark them, just because some of them we are no longer interested in, some of them are in the process, and some we've already completed them. And so I don't know if we want to do that like at the workshop.
Very good. Yes. So our workshop, Wednesday, the 4th, December 4th, is going to be on some board priorities. And then what is that document called that, Jen, help me out. Yeah, the resolution, yeah, that we all signed last, I guess, session. We're also going to talk about what we think as a board is an appropriate ask when it comes to using the time of the district of cabinet, essentially. You know, if we have an individual ask, I would like work on this, do this, things like that. How long is that going to take them? And do we think an hour is okay of an ask? If it's something that takes them 8 hours, 40 hours, 80 hours to work on, and it's just one of us who wants to, know about it, or that might not be appropriate, right? Without total board direction. So that's going to be part of our conversation Wednesday at our Wednesday the 4th at our next workshop. Yeah. Anybody else want to?
I have
add
something.
to action? Okay.
Just to talk about the library policy. In that instance, I know, Pat, we had talked before about, or we all had talked about like a policy committee. To me, this would be important to have input from community, teachers, librarians, the specialists, like really get a true committee together for a library policy.
I think that the amount of interest that this is going to drum up in the community as a whole could warrant something.
Does each board member want to nominate a member of the public or a staff member?
I think that's fair. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know every librarian in this district or every, specialist who would be interested and who has the specialty in that particular age group. So I would
maybe
open
administration
it
could do
for,
the
yes, I was going to say, like, they could open it to the staff to see who would be interested.
Yeah.
And then each one of us could nominate a member of the public or a staff member.
I think that's as long as everybody's, I don't think that's a.
Do you have a certain number you want? Do you want me to open it? If I open it up to all the librarians, they're all going to be there.
I would say probably 4.
Do you want per level? Do you want
2 per level? Well, it's just
so I think you got to
elementary,
be.
middle, and
I would
high
want.
school.
Teachers and librarians.
Okay.
That kind of thing.
Okay.
I mean, because teachers are going to have a different view than a librarian would.
I'm assuming a teacher would have a different perspective than the librarian would, but it's 2 different professions, areas of the profession.
Yes, and then we also have our ELA teachers I mean, there are a lot of positions to consider in this that I think would
As
be
a teacher.
Well, yeah, but I mean, an elementary teacher, a middle school teacher, ELA really isn't at elementary level. There's just kind of,
So do we have
the individual
ELA leads?
We have content leads.
Yeah,
Yes.
content
So ELA
leads.
per building?
You have ELA department chairs per building. You have an ELA content lead.
So maybe like the department heads for each grade level?
Per building.
Not each grade level, like middle school, high school, or middle school, elementary school, high school.
So you want the district content lead?
No,
so you
the
have
building.
All right. So if you have building department chairs, so you want every building's department chair for ELA?
Not every building.
No. I just need a.
Just one per grade level, I would say, and then some librarians. Not grade level. Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. And then do we want stakeholders involved as well?
So
I know we would be
nominate.
nominating people, but
Yeah.
to be able to open it up for.
And then how many
we can-
librarians do you want per level?
So if we have 3 teachers, then I would say 3 librarians. That makes it 6. And then one other kind of staff member.
I'm super curious what the interest from, I know
gonna be
you said
big.
everybody's going to want to, but if we have, 70 staff members who want to be a part of this, limiting it to just 6, we want it obviously to be workable, right? We want to be able to have conversation. We want there to be input. So we don't want, 50 people there, but how many people are at a review committee for a book? I feel like there's like 15 or there's a lot.
What if
There's a-
instead we did like a community engagement, like we did
Yeah.
with, I forget
And then the board
I
can
forget
write the
what
policy.
policy that was. We did a community engagement, and then we had stations. It was at North Point. North Point.
couple of those.
Renee, you talking about when there was something at each feeder pattern? That thing? or-
No, it was. I think it was only at. I get Liberty and North Point mixed up because they're the same, but it was one of those two.
It was in the cafeteria.
It wasn't the showcase, but there was,
Right.
I know which,
Right.
there was.
And it was-
That was
would
for a
be good, like,
specific
have a
policy?
town
It was
hall-ish
a
where-
people were-
specific. What policy was that? Oh, it was the one for.
It was over community engagement, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was the resident agenda item policy.
That was
There was
part
a
of it.
station. So if we want to do do that, and then I don't know. if
This
that
could
would
be a
easier.
very
Maybe
kind
we,
of emotional.
What-
I think
And
having
I
a little
agree.
more formal
Okay.
process.
How
would be-
about if for representation, I've got a different idea. If you want to say 1 per grade level or per like middle school, well, I think there's a couple things. Number one, I think you at minimum, and then I think we go to the librarians at those levels and say, who would you like to be the representative for your level? I think elementary, if you're doing equal representation, there's 12 elementary schools, you need 3 elementary librarians. That's a fourth of your buildings, which is the same thing you're doing at the secondary level. So I think, it's going to grow a little bit there, but you're going to get a better representation. And then I think if we present it to our building leadership teams, they can help work through, like our librarians talk all the time. They can decide who wants to be there and then come back and report out in different ways to do that stuff as well, which would then give all the librarians a chance. So I think it's going to be an ongoing process. I think what happens, the committee meets, they go back, they report to their stakeholders, just like everybody should be doing from the community level and everything else. And then they bring that feedback back to the committee on what was talked about. So that would be my recommendation for how to do the staff side of the committee. I think stakeholders, community, I'm sorry, guys, but 7 community members isn't going to give you probably enough of a representation. I think you probably need more than 7 community members. I would probably double that. I know it's going to be a big group, and when you're running that group, it's going to take some time to navigate that. But I think you've got to give, a different, you got to give them some way to be represented too. I don't know that 1 per each of you is enough.
so do we think having kind of like a town hall meeting before or maybe we craft some sort of like just a starting point and then just talk it out with community members, like a town hall style, and they don't, they can just come up to the microphone, stand in line, whatever. I don't know. And that, because I feel like if this is gonna be like a 25-person committee, I feel like we're not gonna be able to get a lot done. That that needs to get done.
No, I completely hear what you're saying. But if we end up with 200 people who want to speak,
Then we
it's going to be like
order pizza.
another Piney Ridge meeting, which, you know, hearing everybody is definitely important. I'm just kind of like on the flip side, like how much of the district's time, our resources, those kinds of things, not saying the policy isn't important to consider, but also considering, you know, the resources, this could be, you know, hours and hours and hours and hours and hours.
We could just, and I'm not saying we should do this, but we could say, hey, we're going to be drafting a library policy. Anybody who has any comment, feel free to email your thoughts to the board. I mean, I know that that's not favorable. I would rather I hear from people face to face, but they have that option as well, as many have stated before on this board.
Email. That's true.
But I don't think that having 25 people in a room trying to hammer out a policy is going to be very productive.
Some idea that just came to mind. I don't know if we have anything on the agenda for like the January or February workshop. Thank you. If we could use that for a time for public comment for a policy, and then further take the feedback from that to the policy committee with the staff and board members who are present.
So just my two thoughts, maybe Brian, start with surveying the staff. Who's interested? It sounds like could be quite a few. From that, maybe we from the staff, create 2 or 3 versions that we can then present to the public and say, feedback. What do you think of these? How would you tweak? How would you, that way we're getting both, but it's not like it's a free for all at the first meeting. We've got some parameters here. This is what we're thinking. What do you think?
Maybe we start, because you're talking about wanting to write it from scratch. My suggestion would be we start with, and I can't believe I'm going to say it because everybody loves surveys. I mean, I think you're going to have to do something where you can get general community feedback. You need to get, like, even if you just say, list your priorities. So if you, whatever you guys have in mind, here's what we're thinking, rank your priority, put these in priority order. So if it's age appropriate, or you can put them in priority order, I think is what you're saying.
So here's what I'm going to say on the surveys. I think we should send out with the survey an example of the sexually explicit content that we're trying to discuss here, because a lot of people don't realize how far it goes. A lot of people think it's just Jimmy and Sally are making out on the couch, and that's not even close to what I would suggest we limit for age appropriateness. So
maybe book titles would be,
that's not going to do
people can look it up. Well,
sure, but if you go out to the general public and show them a picture or show them a couple sentences of what's happening, they will be more likely to say, oh, wow. They're not going to say, oh, the title of this book doesn't, this title doesn't seem alarming to me. Some people are not going to go that extra mile to understand what exactly that book is, what it has in it as far as the sexually explicit content. So I don't think we'll have an accurate representation of the will of the community.
I don't know if we have a very good consensus on how to move forward with this. I feel like we could sit here probably for 2 hours talking about how we want to organize this, who we want involved, how many people.
Can we add it to the workshop just to talk about what we think we're going to do?
Then we probably need to remove something else from the workshop.
I'm talking just a board discussion about what we want to even the next step to be.
Yeah, we probably still need to remove something else from the workshop then, just so that we have
what's on the workshop,
the time.
Right
well, priorities. Yeah, what was?
That's just to go down the checklist.
Well,
and
yeah,
mark stuff off.
talking about the amount of time that we're asking admin to spend on things that are individual requests. And in a way, this is kind of that, but I think there's a consensus from the board. What was the other thing that you wanted, Renee? Oh, redactions, board sunshine, like when we sunshine something or ask for materials, what should and shouldn't be redacted.
I mean, we can come an hour early.
So I'll just give you, right now, it's no tax rate increase bond issue, academic services discussion, policy 6145, emotional support dog first read, board priorities, legal sunshine redactions discussion. That's all on the workshop right now.
So this is going to be a special meeting.
Well, yeah, technically,
Could
yes.
be, yeah, it will be.
Well, if there end up being any motions or something like that,
There's
yes,
policy on
definitely.
it. So I think if policy's
The
on it, we
first
have to have a
read, yeah,
special
then it's
meeting.
probably, yes. Now we could,
If we do that, this is like just what I wrote as a list of things. It's the running list that you got that had been discussed.
What do we have the start time at?
we were going to do
haven't said it. I think it was, we were talking about 5
5
o'clock.
or 5:30.
I mean, we could start earlier. I really don't want
Well,
to
we
keep.
got to make sure admin is available early, earlier. Because I'm guessing that we're probably going to want like Katie there, she probably wouldn't have been there for
four?
what was on there now.
It was 4.
I don't know what her schedule is. Make sure Jerry can be there. Pat is probably going to need to be there for sure.
Is 4 workable?
Okay, hang on. Let me 1 sec then. Hang on. Let's see, the 4th board. What about you guys? For me, 4:30 would be better. Yeah, because we have, definitely. Brian,
I'm
your schedule.
I'm wide open. I already had it open.
You'll be here anyways.
Yep. I already got it on the calendar.
All right. Katie, Pat, 4:30. Pat, yeah. Okay. Mark your calendars. Oh, no, I got a lot. Hang on. Log back in. All right. Anything else on this? Or we're scheduling it out for Wednesday? Oh, go ahead. Yep.
Just my thing is like, we're going to spend a lot of time on this project, and I know it's one that people are passionate about, but I think we need to spend more time as a board on how do we recruit, retain staff? How do we become more competitive? How do we make this a district that people want to be here? How do we get bus drivers here? How do we fix these problems? These are the problems that affect student outcomes. That's what we need to be spending more time on. I think I think we don't talk about those things enough, and we talk about little things and one-offs that are hot button issues, but these are the issues that affect student outcomes. We need the best people here teaching students. We need the best support staff. We need them to get to school on time. Those are the things we need to be focusing on. So that's just my 2 cents on kind of what we're talking about.
I would love to hear like any ideas that you have. If you want to like at the workshop, bring them up or
that's
something.
what I'm saying. I think let's spend time workshopping those ideas.
I mean, I think there's room for everything. We're responsible for everything, so we may as well work on everything if we need to.
If you guys are good with it, Jerry and I had been working, and Jerry's done a lot of work on it she's got a well-documented list of board priorities where you guys have listed those with cabinet action and stuff. We can share that list with you guys so you can review that and have it ahead of time to look at that. You've got it, the board action. This is something that you guys hadn't updated that. So Jerry and I was kind of keeping track of it all. Really, it's Jerry. She's the organized one. I'll just share the document with you guys so you see it.
I do have another one that I would like to add, I guess, and this is something I've been talking about for 3 years, and it's not vape monitors because I've done a lot of research. They don't work. I would love, somebody needs to invent this technology, make it work. you will make money because we need it in the schools, or a vape detecting ferret, because there's an SRO in South County who has a pet ferret who is his vape detecting ferret at a middle school, and he brings it with him. Little snitch, yep, but it's needed. So delicately, I know our child nutrition department, they work really, really hard. I think that they do a great job, with what they have. But improving the quality of the food that we serve for lunches, which I know is also a very delicate thing because everything costs money and everything's getting more and more expensive. But I've said it, and mozzarella sticks are not a main dish. I just would love to see us, whether it's engaging other vendors. I don't want to get rid of our child nutrition department. I don't want anyone to lose their job. I don't want anything like that to happen to anybody. I'm definitely not picking on them. But I would like to see our lunches improve. I know we've had these conversations, even just having a salad bar even for elementary school, that's stocked and, not running out of the food and the things. I don't know. There's lots of things, but I would like to add that to the list for the board priorities, if we would, please.
Are you thinking like a meeting with Gwen?
I don't know. There are lots of, like when we went to conference, there were lots of vendors in the big hall that were serving food, and they can come in. There's one that has a chef that, just works at the district, and they plan the meals and they serve fresh ingredients. Things are actually cooked, not just heated up. I don't know. That's just and I hear it from, it's not just me. There's a lot of people. We've gotten emails, right? And so I don't know.
I would agree. On one of these notes, I heard that the breakfast pizza had red sauce on it instead of gravy, and I was aghast to hear that. Breakfast pizza is a staple in my life when it comes to school food.
That's great.
So I thought that was kind of strange. However, I would also like to give a huge shout out to the child nutrition department for tonight's dinner. We had Thanksgiving dinner, and it was amazing as always.
That is true.
I dream about it.
Very good. Yes. You'll talk about it next Thanksgiving.
I will talk about it next Thanksgiving and every Thanksgiving to come. Thanks.
Brian, were you going to say something? No. Okay. Anybody else want to add to the no? All right. Moving on to, now I have to go back. Hang on. I think it's board comments that's next. Anybody want to say anything they haven't already said? Jen. Oh, David. I'm going to let David go first because he hasn't talked as much as Jen.
All right. I just want to say to all the students out there watching, because I know you are, finals are going to be here soon. Start studying.
I just want to say happy Thanksgiving. Eat lots of turkey and sleep a lot.
Jen took mine, but I just want to say to the the teachers, get your rest and enjoy your time off.
Yeah, I've got a little bit more in depth I wanted to talk to. From last meeting, we spoke about iReady and made a request for a readout of how we compare against the top 10. Brian, could you give us, or Dr. J, could you give us an update on where that stands?
You can start and I'll fill in whatever.
We've reached out to iReady. Last we heard they were still checking with their legal team to see if they're able to do that. The part of the agreement that they sign, or every district signs with iReady, is you're not going to release any of their individual data, and they're worried that by doing what you're saying, you're going to be able to have individually identifiable data, right, wrong, or indifferent. That's what their legal team's saying. So they are looking at talking through other options to potentially see if they can meet what you're asking for, or at least a version of what you're asking for. The one thing with iReady that I would say is and even they'll tell you it's not really meant to be comparison district to district. The goal of iReady is really truly growth. When you want to compare, it's the P&A, it's proficiency and advanced, it's the EOC data, it's the MAP data that we give. The iReady data is supposed to be showing us and giving us a benchmark for where the kids are performing at that time. I do think we're going to get some data expansive data that shows a little bit more of what you may be talking about, but it's not comparison data. So what we were looking at they gave us a proposal of something that doesn't meet what you're asking for, but we did like the slides. They spent a lot showing us where our on target readers were at and math proficiency, where our ones that are deemed grade level, and it shows how that are below grade level by 1 and then 2+, and it shows where their growth has been in that. That was eye-opening data for us to see. It painted a picture that I don't think any of us would have necessarily thought at first. So we're working with them to get that data, and that's on the board agenda or on the workshop to show and share. So as far as like top 10, I don't know that they're going to be able to do that. They seem pretty steadfast that their legal team wasn't going to approve that.
I hear you. I'd push back. They're already giving us all that data. They're giving us how we rank against the state and the nation. So they're already sharing that data.
But it's not their argument is not that it's national. They have 13 million students that they test. And so and again, I can't tell you what their legal team is or isn't saying. All I can tell you is what they've asked or what we've shared. And they've reviewed it multiple times with their legal team. And so, I
understand.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked, but I just wanted to get it out there so everybody know that it's where the update is.
Correct.
Kind of hand in hand with that. I saw an article this week was forwarded to me, which I found was quite interesting. And it kind of ties back in a scary way that there's a lawsuit today out in Connecticut where college students are suing the school districts because they can't read. And it'll be interesting to see how they end up. There's a lot of discussion within the article about IEPs and everything else, but I think we need to track that and see where that ends up, because that is concerning to me. First, they can't read, and then tying back to the community. You mentioned briefly, Brian, about the dog write-out. So just a real quick note, I think I have it right that the draft is done. We're going to go through that in the workshop, like a first read, make any changes we want to.
If we make that a special meeting, yeah.
Okay.
We would have to make it a special meeting, not a workshop, though.
Oh, okay.
That's what they were talking about with policy. So
Okay.
I was just listing off everything that was on there.
Okay. So I guess if it doesn't happen, then would it come up in December? Okay. And let's see. I think we should have somebody update, Brian, your name plaque. Yeah. Yeah, and the final thing I wanted to talk about, and it's something that was covered up front in public comments. I want people to know that when things happen as individuals, as board members, we have the same rights as everybody else out there. That we can say what we want, and we have to live with our ramifications of what we said. That's called the First Amendment right. And I firmly disagree with what that group was doing. I think they're wrong. I think they were, and I wrote about it on my post. I think that they chose to go down a path because they're mad and they're frustrated, and we've all been there. I think that if there's a discussion that was made right now, you would hear a remorse, and you hear somebody saying that they hadn't thought through that. And I guess I'd be the first one to say that I've done that a few times. I caution people to throw rocks at glass houses. Now, having said that, I think that it's important that we also understand that as a board member, we just didn't think about that on our own, and we're not acting on it because that's what we believe. I had the opportunity, as well as somebody on the administration, or maybe another board member, that's what it was, sorry, not administration, to talk with legal counsel. And they as well confirmed what I expected, this First Amendment rights. Now, I don't like it all what was said, but man, I'm sure there's a few things that I've said that people don't like as well. But all this has done is created a lot of cycles of time for the administration where they've had to answer phone calls and had to deal with things that are taken away from having the kids learn. I would just ask that the members of the community would not call the administration and complain about something like that. Call and talk about where your kids are on math, on science, or whatever. But give us a little bit of grace because we all make mistakes. And I would ask that we just say that as of today, this is closed. We understand mistakes were made, that it wasn't thought through. And when we're done and we're moving on. And with that, I'll turn it back to you.
Any more comments?
Yeah, I just had something quickly that I was going to say that, overall, I am encouraged of where we are going as a district. I don't think we're anywhere where any of us want to be. Success in life is rarely linear, and we're all part of this. It's the board, it's the superintendent, it's the community, it's the teachers. It's all of us are in this together. And I think all of us are doing our part to make it better. That doesn't mean we're not going to make mistakes. That doesn't mean teachers or administration is not going to make mistakes. We've established a superintendent. We have expanded our early childhood education. We've implemented new ELA curriculum. We've expanded secondary opportunities with apprentice sponsorships at the secondary level. We are moving in the right direction, and that's a tribute to everybody. So I just want to say, I feel good about where we're going, and it's not just the board, it's not just Brian, it's not just the teachers, it's not just the parents, it's everybody. I think we are getting people pulling in the right direction, and I'm encouraged by where we're going. So thank you to everybody.
Anybody else? Nope. All right. Motion to adjourn.
Motion. Second, whatever.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, that's right. I forget that. Sorry. It's drilled into me. Closed session, roll call. Closed session. Okay.
President Lysak?
Aye.
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 Director Welch?
Aye.
Secretary Henke?
Aye.
Dr. Basingham?
Aye.